Hello, everybody. Good morning, good day, and good evening to wherever in the globe you may be. I hope you can all hear me all right. And welcome to the third day of the Global Green Destinations Days 2021. Today, we will be talking about reducing tourism's impact on the planet. My name is Masha Klemencic from the Slovenian Tourist Board, and I will be your host today. As mentioned, tourism has very strong impact on the environment, social and natural. So today we will be hearing more from different speakers from destinations who are already addressing this topic very actively. And we will also be hearing more about a tool that is going to help destinations address climate change and act. Climate change is something that everybody is very much aware of because it is something tangible and also very dangerous for our environment, for the society. So today we will be speaking with people who manage destinations who are already addressing these topics. They will be coming from Australia. From Australia, we have Mr. Ben Artap. We have Mr. José Toste from the Portuguese Azores. We have Mrs. Beth Thornton from Canada, Mr. Lester Chen from Singapore, and Mrs. Ying Chun Lin from Taiwan. And of course, myself from the Slovenian Tourist Board. At the Slovenian Tourist Board, we have started to realize the impact of tourism and of our activities on environment many years ago. And we have made first concrete steps to mitigate it in 2009. We have set up our green scheme of Slovenian tourism in 2015, but since you have already heard, I presume, about our green scheme of Slovenian tourism, I will not be talking about it so much today, but I will be talking about how it is becoming a very concrete tool through which we can implement concrete changes that we want to see. So today in the second session, I will be presenting a little bit more about this. Especially how we address plastic waste. This is a project that we have been working on for the whole year. It has been developed through a roadmap that we made in communication with our destinations. And also our destinations found this topic to be very much crucial. Our 59 destinations that have already entered the Green Scheme of Slovenian Tourism have all been certified by the Green Destination Standard. So our relationship with green destinations goes back to 2015 and even earlier. So today, without further ado, and to show you a bit more vividly where I come from and how green Slovenia is, I would like to play a short video just so you can have a better idea. Can we play the video, please?
Listen, traveler, it's too late to go back now. The forests have filled your lungs. Rivers run in your heart. You have set the course for the land so green and abound with unspoilt nature that you will never be the same. You have come to Slovenia. To live hand in hand with these natural riches is a deep-rooted gratitude locals feel every day. The respect for nature shows in the way we think, live, and do. Slovenia Green is a unique story and a great lesson in sustainability for the rest of the world. It began with a pledge to preserve the pristine nature for us and for you. We set out on a long, steep path and became active guardians of our natural heritage. Local communities and tourist providers have all come together to build a unique model of sustainability in tourism. Over a decade, we put together a visionary policy that nurtures everyone by the table. Today, we are one of the world's greenest destinations. We encourage you to visit us by train, bike, or on foot. On your way, you will come to understand why we included the right to clean drinking water in our Constitution. We believe in responsible observation of the mysterious wildlife. The inhabitants of our ancient forests can teach us all how important it is to protect our planet. When your step becomes heavy, it is time to rest. We think green accommodation should be as close to stars, birds, and trees as possible. We believe in the green inspiration from one generation to another, from one traveler to another. It comes with a view that overwhelms. To know how to listen to a tree is for us a way of traveling too. You can never cross the same stream, walk the same forest path twice. Our commitment and enthusiasm for sustainable tourism have been contagious. Today, we stand united, together with you, dear traveler, under the vision of Green Slovenia.
Thank you so much. Now you will hear more about Slovenia's efforts to reduce tourism's impact on the planet in the second session. In the first session, we have two speakers from Asia, from Taiwan and Singapore. And then in the second part of this first session, we are going to have a climate emergency workshop that will very much focus on climate change and how to best adapt to it. And then at the end of this first session, you are all warmly invited to breakout rooms as in the two previous days to discuss these topics further. Now, I would like to introduce our first speaker of the day, Mrs. Ying Chun Lin from the Sun Moon Lake area in Taiwan. Mrs. Ying Chun Lin has served in the Sun Moon Lake for more than 10 years, and her job is to plan the resources that the destination has, formulate an overall development plan, and work hard towards the goals of sustainability. And today she's going to tell us more about how they bring sustainable green energy to power their destination. Mrs. Ying Chun Lin, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, I'm Ying Jun from Taiwan. I'm coordinator at Salmon Lake National Scenic Area Administration. This by Joanne and Yuying. We will be taking your question together. Please watch the video first. Today, I am sharing the story of Salmon Lake's hidden treasures. First, this is us, Southeast Asia, Taiwan. Salmon Lake is the largest hillside lake located in the middle of Taiwan. Come here to enjoy the most special experience in the water, land, and the air. The bikeway around Salmon Lake was selected by CNN Go as one of the world's top 10 most beautiful bikeways. Full of local culture, low carbon, and sustainable is our vision. Taiwan is an island country. There was not enough rainfall last year, so the water company stopped supplying tap water 2 days a week for April 2021 for 2 months. Salmon Lake itself is a water conservation and hydroelectric power generating system. So we don't normally feel so strongly about water shortage. This year, Salmon Lake suffered its most severe drought in 50 years. It did not rain for more than 10 months, resulting in a 30-meter drop in water level. A massive area of lake bed was exposed and became grassland. It turns out that there are many cultural memories and tourist waste on the water was seen by public again due to the water level drops. These startling discoveries made people realize the impact of tourism on Salmon Lake. There are many administrations with different management tasks in Salmon Lake region. You can see that there are 5 organizations for territorial waters management. We, Salmon Lake National Scenic Area, are responsible for the management in the area. What can we do about declining water level, massive garbage under the lake, and the local operator, resident, and tourist? At that time, everyone had different idea, but we still keep on going. Outside of our official responsibility, we decide to exert influence. When the lake's water level was adequate, it was difficult to effectively promote water conservation and carbon reduction methods. While images of the dried up lake were posted on social media and shocked the residents and the tourists. In the past, the agency responsible for the hydroelectric power station, Taiwan Power Company, could only remove sludge from the lake during the dry season. However, if we remove more sludge, the water storage capacity of Salmon Lake will increase a lot. So it was a good moment for all the stakeholders to set the same goals to increase water storage. This year, we extended our effort to get stakeholders to cooperate in sludge removal activities. In total, 1.75 tons of waste and 32 tons of sludge were achieved in the 2 dredging projects. Under the influence of media propaganda, the public has also realized the urgency of saving water. Thai Power Company is also testing new power generation methods to solve the problem of sludge removal. During the recent drought, a larger area of the lake bed was exposed. This enabled the indigenous South tribe to revive the swing ceremony on traditional land that had been submerged for 60 years. This ceremony was open to the public, fulfilling the objective of passing on South cultural heritage. Salmon Lake is the only national scenic area with a sewage treatment plant in Taiwan. The 90% used water is discharged into the pond after sewage treatment to generate electricity at night. After the second treatment, it will be provided for everyone to use, repeat the cycle. In other words, the water in our building is always recycled. Some of the projects in the past did not take into account climate change, just like our wharf. When the rainfall suddenly increased, the facility were unevenly stressed and the foundation piles were stuck. As a result, the wharf was seriously damaged. Due to the impact of climate change, design of newly constructed facility must consider all possibilities. The lesson learned is that under the influence of climate change, not only monitoring is important, but also timely response to abnormal conditions. So we cooperate with stakeholders in water workshops to train sustainable seed members and continue to exert influence. In addition to our monitoring of water consumption, we also promote the participation of local operators to find more ways to save water. It is expected that the GTS Green Travel Seal will be implemented so that the local operators will move toward a more sustainable direction together. This is a practice of Salmon Lake this year. I would like to thank you for your time, and I wish see you in Salmon Lake as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Yung Chan Lin. Of course, I forgot to mention before, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. You can write them in the chat and we'll answer them later in the 5-minute Q&A session that will follow just after the presentation, our next presentation from Mr. Lester Chen from Sentosa Development Corporation from Singapore. Sentosa is a small island in the south of Singapore, and Mr. Lester Chen has been working on projects of decarbonization and community engagement on the island, including businesses. The island's goal is to become carbon neutral by 2030 and to be recognized as a sustainable tourism destination by 2025. And Mr. Chen will tell us more about it.
Yeah, thank you for the kind introduction, and a very good morning and good evening to everyone here, depending on where you're dialing in from. My name is Lester, and I'm from the Sentosa Development Corporation, and I'm very honored and happy to be sharing with the audience here how we are trying to push the boundaries for decarbonization. As Masa mentioned, Sentosa is a small tourist island destination located off the southern tip of Singapore. But we welcome a fair number of tourists on an annual basis. Just before COVID hit us, we were welcoming up to 19 million visitors per year in 2019. Before I go into the details, a video is always good to give you a short tour of Sentosa, to give you a sense of how we look like before we share about our decarbonization plan.
Amid the rich biodiversity and beyond relaxation, fun, and adventure lies a treasure trove of history and heritage. And we want to keep things that way. The Sentosa Carbon Neutral Network connects businesses on Sentosa, providing sustainable alternatives such as carbon neutralized events for guests. By 2025, Sentosa's intra-island transport network will be fully electric. Powered entirely by innovative technology and new solutions generating green energy. In the next decade, we will develop more sustainability-focused experiences and extend the Sentosa getaway to the neighboring southern islands. We will preserve our rich history and heritage while building a bridge to the future. Join us as we pave the way, hand in hand, for our sustainable Sentosa.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video, and the video had given you a sense and context of how Sentosa looks like. We are a very small island of about 500 hectares located just off Singapore mainland. As we all know, Singapore is very well known for our highly efficient and urbanized built environment. And Sentosa is the green and rustic getaway island that serves the leisure needs of our population, as well as our international tourists. Thanks to good planning, we keep 50% of our island for nature while making use of the other half to optimize land use for many users, from hotels, residential, F&B to attractions and safekeeping venues for year-long events. STC is a government organization which I work for, runs and manages the island. We lease out spaces to these businesses to operate in. In total, we host about 200 big and small businesses whom we call our island partners. We are fortunate that many of these businesses take ownership over sustainability in their own ways and contexts. Just to name a few, we have the world's most eco-friendly golf club, who makes its golfer don beekeeping suits to champion conservation messages. We have beach clubs that upcycles and provide free kayaking trips if you pick up marine debris on your way back. We have hotels that are built around old trees and practices composting as a way of life. Also around the island, we serve sustainable products such as carbon neutral beers and sustainable food. Each and every one of these businesses are doing their bit for the environment. But as an island, we sat back and think, is that enough? Can we achieve the climate goals? So we found that there could be more synergies and environmental outcomes that we can achieve if we could align every one of these businesses towards common goals. That is why we came up with what we call the Sustainable Sentosa strategy. So the vision of Sustainable Sentosa is for our island to become an internationally recognized destination that can inspire many to follow. We have two long-term ambitions which guides our plans. First is to become carbon neutral by 2030, and that includes all the businesses operating on the island. Second goal is to become a globally recognized sustainable tourism destination. For today's context, I will be providing a bit more color just on our carbon goal and how we're going to plan to achieve it. Today, Sentosa's island-wide carbon profile, incorporating all the businesses and operations, amounts to slightly more than 160,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. This is what we like to call our collective carbon Everest. We don't climb Everest overnight. We need to plan our approaches, establishing base camp, which includes groundwork such as understanding how to measure how high is actually carbon Everest, going into measuring it, finding your teammates whom you can rely on, and charting out what needs to be done for the climb. So that's really the first step. We then start the climb, which includes implementing initiatives and understanding what kind of carbon markets that we can invest our resources in. We also plan for and take stops along the way to calibrate and evaluate mega trends and push the boundaries for solutions. While STC's actual carbon footprint is only 8% of the overall profile, we believe as an operator and manager of the precinct, we can play two significant and unique roles. One, as a precinct manager, we can form a pathway to carbon neutrality so that we can lead our island businesses on which is the best route to take, and as well as galvanize island-wide actions. So in order to galvanize actions from a variety of businesses we host on the island, we establish what we call the Sentosa Carbon Neutral Network, or in short, SCNN. This is a business alliance committed to carbon neutrality by 2030. The members come from all segments of businesses, from hotels, attractions, and F&B, from every corner of the Sentosa Island. Together, the alliance will look at sharing best practices to lower knowledge barriers, aggregating demand, and identify opportunities for solutions that can solve commonly faced problems, and developing guidelines for leisure experience and operations such as waste management, green mines, and local food sourcing. And with current technology, we know that we are still quite a far way from achieving carbon neutrality. Innovation is one key aspect that we need to keep pushing so that we can reduce as much as possible our emissions. We have already begun exploring some of these opportunities with like-minded partners. We are looking at district cooling systems, renewable energy in tidal or solar power, waste to energy infrastructure. We will continue to seek out green infrastructure opportunities that may further reduce our carbon emissions. While we decarbonize our operations through implementation of technologies, we find that we need not look at it alone. Our guests can very much contribute to reducing our carbon through their choices. We have and are planning to launch more sustainability themed tours, offerings, and products, which will advocate conservation and carbon-friendly choices that our guests can choose to make. We believe that through engaging with nature, our travelers can appreciate the importance of conservation and how a sustainable lifestyle and travel choices can translate to environmental benefits. Finally, we know that this climb to our summit of Carbon Everest will be long. In the current state of the world, we find that sustainability is fast taking center stage, where development of sustainability technology is accelerating quickly. We also need to leverage partnerships to increase capacity and multiply our reach. We have formed collaboration with these partners in areas of decarbonization, nature conservation, and waste management, as well as education and outreach. Collectively, we believe partners will help us go further and faster on our sustainability journey. With this, I end my sharing. Looking forward to hearing some of your thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Chen, for sharing your experience. We have a question in the chat from Malu Mayorga to both of our speakers, actually. How do you engage stakeholders on acting to fight climate emergency with you? We know sometimes it's difficult to create an action plan that all stakeholders agree on and are keen on acting together.
Should I go first? So we face the same challenge for Sentosa. We have over, as mentioned, 200 businesses. So what we thought was useful is to be able to tell them why they should do it and find the value in it for them. And that's very important for businesses in especially the COVID climate in today's.
And which is this value for them that you found? If you could just elaborate a little bit.
Yeah, so it's about setting where are the trends going forward, right? And you know, we know all the demand for sustainable travel. People are looking for more travel, so it becomes a value proposition for their businesses, as well as the opportunity to improve their operations of their business, right? And I think the other aspect is about upcoming risks that they need to mitigate in terms of carbon and climate change. So we need to put together such reasons for them to come on board taking actions with us together.
Okay, thank you very much. Mrs. Ing Chun Lin, would you like to answer as well?
Can I just quickly interpret that into Mandarin Chinese?
Of course.
英军那个问题，我刚刚已经写在那个讯息里面，不过就快快的讲一次，就是那个有没有你有看懂吗？有看懂我就
好。那
对，
就是
对，
因为这
他们的问题就是说，虽然行动计划非常的难形成，但是你们是如何让其他的利益相关人愿意去加入你们的这些努力？
好，其实我们平时在跟我们这些当地的利害关系人，其实平时就有建立一个沟通的平台。那通常会透过有个别需求、有个案需要的时候，我们就会召开这个会议，透过这个平台去讨论这些需求。那今年的这个50年来的大旱这个情况，其实是非常特别的。所以其实，在这样子连续10个月没有下雨的情况之下，就是大家都有强烈的意识到缺水的这个议题。所以其实，在当下，其实我们在讨论这个议题的时候，大家是很快的就形成了这个共识的。
So we have in Salmon Lake, we have a platform that's established for regular sort of communications between stakeholders. And so we have been sort of connecting with them throughout normal times. But this time with the drought in Salmon Lake, it was like an emergency that kind of hit everyone, and it was obvious. And also the external forces of this drought and its impact kind of helped us focus rather quickly on what we want to do together to mitigate the impacts.
Because it was an emergency and you didn't have a choice, really.
Yeah,
okay.
对，因为是一个非常危机的情况，所以对利益相关人来说，是不是他们就没有觉得有什么其他的选项了，对不对？
对，其实就是大家对这个议题就是相同的关注，那所以说大家就也认为说应该要立即去做一些行动。
Yes, that's right. We really didn't. We all agreed on what to do and how quickly we should act. Yes.
Very good. Thank you. We have some more questions in the chat. First for Mr. Chen, from a question from Slovenia, actually, from Mr. Jaro Berce. How are businesses gaining out or profiting of switching to carbon neutrality?
Yeah, that's always the question for businesses, right? So we are finding that approaching carbon neutrality, if you're looking at solutions, there are already solutions that will be cost positive, right? It will mean cost saving in terms of operational costs and maintenance costs, right? So that's one. The second value for carbon neutrality, of course, is in branding and mitigating risk. And when I say risk, is about the risk of increasing government action on carbon, right? Carbon costs. So in fact, if you go carbon neutral, you are reducing your risk when finally one day government in whichever country decide to implement certain costs to carbon. And we are seeing mega trends of a lot of countries already taking action in terms of managing their carbon. So this is a very real risk that will happen.
Thank you. We have another question for you. How does Sentosa deal with single-use plastics?
Yeah, so for single-use plastic, we currently, as a precinct owner, we are looking at banning single-use plastic from all that we have control over. For example, public vending machines, we have banned single-use plastic from them. And especially for Singapore, right? I'm sharing Singapore's context that the single-use plastic discussion goes beyond that. It goes to cover disposable management, right? So even if we're going to switch from single-use plastic to biodegradable cutlery or takeaway packaging, it will still create certain environmental impact. So what we have chosen to take is a more comprehensive solution. We want to work with what I mentioned just now, our carbon neutral network, to co-curate a management guidelines for managing disposables, and that includes single-use plastics.
Thank you, that was very clear. We have one last question in this session for the region of Sun Moon Lake. It is from Roy Ariel, actually, from the GSTC. He says it's very interesting to see the unexpected positive outcome of the drought that caused the drying up of the artificial lake, allowing the Tao people perform a traditional ceremony that last took place 50 years ago. Was the event open to the public, and is there any more information available about it? Just very shortly, maybe.
其实就是少主的祭典里面，就是它当然有一些祭典是没有公开的。那这一次呢，就是他们特别可以在他们的传统领域，因为这个平时都是在原本湖底的地区嘛。那因为这一次因为大旱的关系，那这个土地再次的露出来之后，那少主他们也再重新回到这个传统领域上面去举办这个秋千祭。那这一次的秋千祭，他们是有公开给民众报名去参加的。对。
Yes, for the Tao people, some of their rituals aren't generally open to the public, but this one, the one that was revived due to the drought, was actually open to the public. The swing festival, the general public could sign up to participate and observe a sort of revival of a ritual that's been long lost. Yeah. Thank you.
Now, really, one last question before we move on to the climate emergency workshop. It's for Lester Chen. Since Sentosa is home to a number of international businesses, do you think that the goals and actions led by you and your corporation will influence their headquarters in other countries? Because this would have a really big impact internationally, obviously.
Yes, I think certainly it has, and it has shown in some cases. So as part of the Sentosa Carbon Neutral Network, one of the outcomes is we want our members to adopt the practices that we discussed on Sentosa Island to bring it to beyond Sentosa, to their businesses elsewhere. And some of the example that I can share is one of the beach club. They are going to replicate our carbon reporting and carbon neutrality plan to all their branches on mainland Singapore. We have also got one hotel, right? They are working with us to bring some of the technology that we test bed on Sentosa Island to one of their properties in Maldives. So we are seeing that as a good start, considering the program to be just 1 year old. We already got such momentum. I think if we develop this further, we will have more and more things that we can share with other branches over the world.
Thank you. This is also something that we realized in Slovenia, that it's actually extremely important to bring on board big businesses because they have a lot of influence on others and on their environment. Thank you very much to both our speakers. We now continue with our climate emergency workshop, which will be led by Mrs. Malu Mayorga, who is Marketing and Communications Manager for the START program. START is a new toolkit by Green Destinations that was created to help destinations overcome climate change and also challenges connected to it, and develop a concrete plan, like a roadmap for the future. So now I invite you to listen to this workshop that will take about half an hour, and you are very welcome to pose your questions, to put your questions in the chat, because there will be a discussion later, and this is certainly a topic that concerns us all very closely.
Thank you, Masha. Thank you so much for introducing. Let me just share my screen. Okay. Okay, so good morning, afternoon and evening, everyone. Welcome, once again, welcome to the third day of the Global Green Destination Days. I'm very happy to see you all here participating in this first workshop. And for those who don't know me already, as Masha mentioned, my name is Malu. I'm the marketing coordinator of the START program. And the objective of this workshop is to introduce you to one of the toolkits we have in the START program that is focused on the climate emergency. So let me just change over here. Yeah. So for those who couldn't attend to our welcome panel, I will briefly introduce you to the START program. So let's start by explaining why START program. The meaning of START is support tools for the assessment and reset of tourism. And in this program, we encourage destination managers to start looking more closely into their community, understanding in depth the context and backgrounds in which they are inserted in. And we help them to start rethinking about the way they do tourism today. Oh, sorry, what's happening? Okay, now. So what are the benefits of this program? First of all, the program will help destinations to create their own roadmap towards a more meaningful tourism, more meaningful and resilient tourism. It also assists in identifying the best opportunities, weaknesses, and strengths of destinations using monitoring tools, forecasting tools, and pathfinder tools. It helps destinations to understand what is the situation and how are they managing the tourism by providing diagnosis tools and detailed reports. And these reports are also very useful for reporting sustainability practices and outputs for residents, the public sector, or even visitors. And we also want to build a solid base of knowledge and good practices. I don't know why it's not going forward. Okay. So just recapping a little the structure of the whole toolkit. Here you can have a clear picture of all the tools we have available at the moment, but we must say that this is an ongoing program. So our idea is to keep growing it up, adding new tools, introducing and developing new tools, but also adding external tools from our partners. I will not extend myself in explaining all the tools due to the short time we have today. But if you would like to know them better, to know in detail each one of the tools that we have, you can always get in touch with us or look for them in our webpage, which is brand new and it's super detailed and explicative. We can share with you later on the link to access their webpage. So basically, as our stepping tool, we have the SDG and Tourism Assessment Toolkit, which is a really long survey and really detailed survey that assess, that try to understand where are you and what you can do as next steps. And then we separate all the tools in 5 different toolkits. So we have the GD interactive assessment that assess more the GD standards and some certifications and some process that the Green Destination do. We also have the benchmarking and reporting tools. We have focused toolkit on climate emergency, the climate reset toolkit, and also the destination sustainability assessment, which is a really comprehensive toolkit. And embracing all of it, we have the learning, let me just move it, the exchange education and learning toolkit that provide us with courses, learning tools, webinars, and so on. Okay, and today we're gonna give a special attention to the climate reset tool. And during the welcome session, I don't know if you were able to be there, but we invited you to fill out our start self-assessment survey, which is a short version of our SDG and tourism assessment tool. And the idea here is to get you more familiarized with the functionalities of this tool and show you how this free and universal tool can help destination managers in taking action and building a more meaningful tourism and constructing their roadmap towards a more resilient, regenerative, and sustainable tourism and destination. So to contextualize a little and try to know you better, we want to share the general outputs we took from this quick survey. These outputs are super enriching and let us emphasize the importance of understanding what is the reality and how we can act to change it. So let's go for the outputs. So which basically, this group is composed by people from all over the globe, as you could see, in 17 different countries, and mostly composed by European with 37%, followed by Asian and Americans, and then Africans with around 12%. Analyzing, we pick some questions for the questionnaire just to analyze over here. So analyzing super quick the responses, we could see that most of respondents don't measure their destination carbon footprint yet, which take us to the majority of respondents saying that their destination don't actively work to reduce the carbon footprint. And here, I think it's important to emphasize the importance of measuring before acting. So then you can have a clear picture of your reality and how you can act with more focus on the issues you have. And then the question 6, in the question 6, we asked you if your destination is implementing an effective adaptation plan to combat climate changes. And we analyzed that most of you have some plans and actions in course, but they are not as effective as you would like them to be. And here some question came into my mind. Why they are not effective? When we implemented them, did we deeply understand the context in which they were inserted in? So we could like, get the most of the tool, get the most of the plan, because this is super important when we are talking about planning and implementing a plan, to analyze the context, to enrich the plan, to enrich the tool, and to better assess each one of the issues. And analyzing the question number 9 and 10, we can see that most countries are active in building green infrastructure, such as parks and green zones. But when it comes to greening buildings, the group split between no actions toward it and some actions, and which make us reflect that still work to be done regarding green buildings, and especially how to engage business to also act together with the destination management to start greening buildings, to start moving towards a more climate resilient destination. And well, this was some thoughts that we could extract from the survey that could be super beneficial when planning the management of a certain destination. And now we would like to show you how you're gonna have access to the responses of your survey. So once we receive all your answers after filling out the survey, the team will work on this tailor-made feedback and what information we will provide you. Let me click over here to access the feedback report. Okay. So this is the feedback report that we provide after filling out the SDG survey. This feedback was based on the responses of the short version that we developed especially for this event. And we took as an example the Slovenian. So Masha, this one is for you. So as an introduction, we give like a brief introduction to what extends the tool, the SDG tool, and why is it beneficial to take in it and how to get most of it. And then we provide you with the score section based on the responses filled in the survey. We rank the overall score of your destination as well as your score regarding the SDGs. So the overall score counts in built on the sum of the START program sub-goals, which is the SDGs that we analyze, and the SDG and the GD standards. And the maximum score a destination can acquire for this survey is 76 points. So let's analyze how Slovenia did regarding all the SDGs that was inside this short version. So as an overall score, Slovenia got 56 out of 76. And then we analyze it in depth, each one of the SDGs and how much they reach into specific SDGs. So for instance, for the SDG number 3, good health and well-being, Slovenia reached 75%. For number 4, for the SDG number 4, 100%, 88% for the SDG 10, and etc. So here you can have a really good picture of how you are performing regarding the SDGs based on the responses that you fill out in the survey. And then we go to the feedback session, which we separate in 2 different sections. The first one is the generic one, when we suggest some actions that green destinations are already implementing. So for instance, here for Slovenia, we suggested the business certification, and we already know that they are part of the top 100 good practices. And then in the specific section, in the survey, you could indicate on which criteria you would like to learn more about, or whether you would like to showcase your destination as a good practices. And over here, we highlight and we explain in detail how to explaining a little bit about all the highlighted issues that you want to know more. So for instance, Masha would like to know more about measuring the destination carbon footprint. And over here, we put like some suggestion on how she can do it. So for instance, we suggested the destination carbon footprint calculator that we have inside the toolkit. And we try to explain better how it can help you in assessing your issues, or what kind of outputs this tool gives you, and why is it beneficial for you to take in. So you're gonna see that it's a long feedback and super detailed feedback, talking about all the issues that she wants to highlight and she wants to know more. And we go through all the responses that you gave us. So for instance, building green infrastructure and provision of green spaces. Here, Slovenia wants to know more about how to start building green infrastructures and so on. And then we give as a suggestion, like taking and knowing more in depth the Start Greening Your City tool and what we have inside of this toolkit. Why is it beneficial for you, and how it can help you assess your issues. So we have, like, as you can see, it's a really extended feedback. And then as a conclusion, based on all the details that we gave, we suggest the 5 most recommendable tools for you to take in based on all the feedback that we provide. So for instance, for Masha, for Slovenia, we ranked climate adaptation planning app, also the destination carbon footprint calculator, destination sustainability assessment, start greening your city tool, and climate risk assessment. I mean, throughout all the feedback, we have more, we suggested more tools, but this was the 5 most recommendable tools that we have. And then we also have as the appendix, your responses, so you can go and see and remember what you answer for each one of the questions to refresh your mind. So, okay, that was it for here. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so now nothing easier to understand the tools we have available to access climate emergency issue than hearing from our experts talking about that and explaining a little bit what it is. So now we will show you all the tools that we have available in the Toolkit C Climate Reset. As you can see over here, we have 5 different toolkits available now. As I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, this is an ongoing process. So we want to add new tools. We want to develop this tool better, but we will briefly introduce you to the available tools that we have now, okay? So as the first expert to talk with us will be Arnie, and she will present us the C1 and the C2 climate footprint assessment. Arnie, welcome.
Yes, thank you, Malu. So the climate footprint assessment, I would explain that carbon footprint calculation that commonly found in the tourism sector is through calculating the travel distance of visitors with various modes of transport. This is indeed the variable that's as the largest contributor to the tourist carbon footprint. And the second largest carbon contributor is from the tourist accommodation. However, the destination carbon footprint calculation has more involving variables beyond tourist travel distance and accommodation selection. And that is why calculating the destination carbon footprint becomes vital, because it could provide a better view of the tourism-related industries and activities that generating carbon emission, and also useful to find out the current sustainability performance of the destination, and help also to set the baseline towards sustainability agenda in the future of the destination. Therefore, we introduce our Start Destination Carbon Footprint tool, which is developed by Smart Assessment Sustainable Tourist Destination. It's a very long name. And this tool is now currently fully operated in the European Union. And with this tool, we calculate the total carbon footprint from tourism-related industries and activities that generating carbon emissions. This model calculates the carbon footprint of the visitors to the destination based on the choice of transport modes, from the source market to the destination, the number of the nights and shares of the range accommodation types, and a range of tourism activities. The more detailed the information, so those transport, accommodation, and market source and activities you provide, the more precise the results of the model. And we can continue to the second one, is the climate mitigation planning. For many years, destinations have set themselves targets to become carbon neutral, or better, climate neutral by a certain year. Therefore, we are providing support to identifying measures to make the destination sustainability agenda happen focusing on reducing emission, generating renewable energy, and also creating local carbon sinks, for example, by conserving local ecosystems and forests. So our C2.1 tool, which is risk of land degradation versus new opportunities, could help to detect landscape risk and find opportunities for land restoration within your area. It could visualize trends, identify patterns in the environment or weather, and detect deviation from those patterns, such as vegetation losses or droughts. This could be also useful to learn more about the type of action that could be implemented to regenerate the land. And the C2.2 tool, which is Living Biomass Monitor, could help to monitor the amount of living biomass, which is forests and other vegetation, and the local carbon sequestration to achieve the destination sustainability agenda. This tool also could identify trends related to the amount of vegetation existing, as well as to learn more about the future possibilities, for example, where new forests can be developed as a carbon sink of the tourism activities in that destination.
Thank you, Arnie. Now we have Isabel that will explain the C3, the climate risk assessment. Isabel, if you would like to introduce a little bit about yourself and start explaining. I have your presentation here with me, but if you want, you can also share your screen.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Do you see me?
No.
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 Oh my, okay. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. That's why tests are good to do before presentation. Okay. Yeah, well, maybe it's better if you show it.
Okay, so
if you have it, then it's gonna be quicker.
I have it over here.
Okay, that's great.
Here
okay. Yeah, so yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, my name is Isabel and I'm a GIS specialist by Green Destination. I've been working on these 3 tools for quite a while now, so I'm pretty excited to show you. So we have 3 options. And for the climate risk assessment, you can either assess the marine flood risk, the sea level rise of your destination. You can assess the heat stress risk, that is the temperature rise, and the precipitation, which in other words is the projected rain and snow in your destination. If you scroll to the next page, I can show an example of the first projection that I made. On the website of Green Destination, I have also made a few maps of different destinations. I have assessed the marine flood risk, so you can also check this out on the Green Destination website. So the first one here, you have, if you zoom a bit in the card, yeah, you can see, well, I've created a layer, a flood layer. This is Palau. It is an island in the Pacific. And so we create flood layers based on the different IPCC scenarios. And the worst case scenario, we would have between 2.5 meter and 3 meter by 2100. And so I have calculated based on the elevation data of the land, which part of the landmass would fall underwater, basically. And so you can make different kinds of layers, 2.5 meter. We also have in the best case scenario, which is 1 meter. We can also make that, and we can compare basically which part of the land mass falls underwater. And we also add some layers which with important tourist sites, then you can see in this way which tourist site fall in the flooding layers. If you zoom in a bit more, you can see it better. Yeah, and you can also close the, sorry, I'm telling you what to do, but yeah.
Sorry.
So yeah, yeah, this, yeah, so you can see here, but for example, there's some tourist attraction in the zone, the flooding zone. So in this way, you can a bit see, and you can make some plan for the future to prevent or to displace those sites, or to make some dikes or whatever, to prevent that these sites disappears, or these airports disappear, or these ports disappear. So yeah, so this is for this one, and of course there's a lot of information that I can give you more, but because it's a short presentation, you can always contact me or Green Destination if you want to have more information on this map, on this specific map. The next one is on the other page. Yeah, this one. This one is a projection of the temperature rise that I've made for the Netherlands. This is the example that I've made. But of course, here would be your destination. And you can choose between different time frame from 20, 40, 60, and 80 years from now. And you can also choose which scenario you want. So by the worst case scenario to the best case scenario. And so what I do is, yeah, this one here, for example, you can see the expecting warming for 2100 for the scenario, for the worst case scenario. You can see how much degrees Celsius would rise and what would be the annual average temperature. And if you scroll down a bit on the links, sorry, on the left side, sorry, ik spreek Nederlands. You can see I have some buttons. I don't know why now you can't see colors, but you can click the buttons, same temperature, higher temperature, and lower temperature. That's on the left side in the text. Yeah. Now, not in this box, but on the left side in the text where I explain all the card.
Here.
Yeah, here's, and yeah, if you go, there's some text underlined, same temp, higher temp, and lower temp.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And then you can click on those and you can compare, for example, if your land has this, which other part of the world has the same temperature as your land, which one will have higher temperature or lower temperature. These are projections, so of course for the future, which will have the same or higher or lower temperature. And we also give an histogram, which is underneath if you scroll a bit down, and that shows, yeah, this one, the histogram there, just above. You just pass it, yeah. This one, thank you. Yeah, so this one shows a distribution of all the expectation of temperature rise by 2100, and you can see your region, where does it stand compared to the rest of the world. So this we give it also. And finally, the last map, if you scroll down, yeah, it's the same concept, except it is applied to rainfall and snow. In other words, precipitation projection. So it's the same thing. You have a layer. You can choose different scenario, different time frames, and you can also have an histogram, and you have buttons to compare with the rest of the world. So basically, I think I will stop here for now for today. But if you have more questions or suggestions, you can always contact me. This document is in the START program website, the page, so you can find it, and you can also find my contact information in this document. So yeah, thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of the conference. And thank you, Malu, for helping me.
You're welcome, Isabella. Thank you. Thank you very much. It was super clarifying. So moving on to the next tools, we have the C5 Greening Your City, and Elias and Elena will introduce themselves and talk a little bit about it. So welcome, Elias, and welcome, Elena.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Well, I'm not sure. Can you see me? Can you? I just see Elias. Okay. Well, this is Elena from Green Destinations, and next to Elias, we have been working on developing a couple of tools from the Start Greening Your City, also with the great support of other team members. And we both have also been working on some research for good practices. So yeah, we're going to explain you very briefly what's this toolkit about, as we just have a few minutes. So Elias, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm going to talk to you about the Greening Your City Toolkit today. So next slide, please, Malu.
I don't know why I can never move it on. Okay.
Okay. So far we have discussed the importance of measuring carbon footprint and the climate risks. But now I want to discuss a bit why cities specifically are important in our efforts to combat climate change. According to the United Nations, cities are now home to more than 4 billion people. They consume 78% of world's energy, and they are responsible for more than 60% of CO2 emissions. So furthermore, climate change largely impacts urban life. Rising temperatures and sea level, extreme weather events, all these have costly impacts for cities' infrastructure, services, human livelihoods, and housing. As such, cities should be a major focus in the battle to mitigate climate change, while making them more resilient to its effects. And one way to do that is by greening our cities. Greening our cities can provide several benefits on different levels, as you can see on the next slide. Yeah, so here have the 5 categories of different benefits. On the environmental level, among others, urban greenery can create cooler microclimates, hence reducing the effect of urban heat island, creating more pleasant cities and improving the quality of life. On a natural level, urban greenery supports biodiversity, and also vegetation, trees, leaves, and roots. They reduce erosion, and they also reduce rainfall and raindrop energy, so minimizing floods and erosion.
On a social level, on another hand, greening urban structures enable to reduce noise pollution, which is it is actually the 3rd most hazardous type of pollution after air and water pollution. And how basically by acting as tools that reflect, scatter, and absorb the sound waves. Also from the point of view of health, green elements play a significant role as providers of cultural, psychological, aesthetic benefits, and also contributes to better health. For example, to stimulate inhabitants' need for physical exercise, reduce stress, and others. And additionally, green spaces also can serve as spaces for educational purposes, social exchange, and more balanced lifestyle. And last benefit, but not least, on an economic level, green cities attract businesses due to making these areas more charming, as well as it benefits the environment, improving the quality and quantity of green spaces. And obviously, at the same time, this helps to attract more visitors. So our actually last slide we're going to talk about is about the 2 toolkits we have developed in the Start Greening Your City, with the objective of supporting urban destinations on investing and considering the importance of greening their spaces. So we have so far two toolkits, C5.1 about greening infrastructures and C5.2 about greening buildings, but both provide similar interests. For instance, by greening infrastructures, you increase the resilience of your city towards extreme events related to climate emergency, such as heat waves, droughts, and floods, improve the quality of life of your city, etc. Greening buildings means you want to design and adapt specific buildings in a more sustainable way, also to help be more resilient on climate challenges. The green structures help decrease the buildings' cooling and heating costs and their carbon footprint. And depending on the area, the physical characteristics, the fabric, the social fabric, multifunctionality, and budget, we would support a urban destination by identifying the most appropriate design and options and measures, as well as their benefits and drawbacks.
And also with green infrastructures and green building, we can help you to enhance the tourist experience, create a more attractive environment, and improve the quality of life in your city. We can also help you receive support in planning, designing, and maintaining green infrastructure and buildings. And as you can see here, for example, I have some pictures of some green infrastructure examples. For example, in the pocket parks in Athens, Greece, or the tree-lined streets in Barcelona. And also an example of green walls in Barcelona, an example of greening buildings. So we hope you found this brief introduction about these tools interesting and willing to know further on the importance of greening your cities. And thank you for listening to us.
Thank you, Elias. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you.
Well, now we welcome Cohen, which will talk a little bit about spatial data analysis and how we do it and how we implement it. Cohen, welcome. If you want, I can share your slides, or you can also share your screen and start presenting as you wish.
Yes, thanks a lot. Maybe it's easier if I just share my own screen.
Yeah, sure.
Under the assumption that it works, so let's try. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you guys see something like Pivot to Impact in the blue type of PowerPoint?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Thanks a lot for the invitation to tell you something about well, basically data technologies for green destinations and the START program, and how accelerates basically sustainability strategies. My company, Pivot to Impact, we are specialized in a whole range of data technologies, amongst other satellite imagery and also modeling, for example, hydrological modeling, but also climate modeling. And we are active in multiple fields like nature and land restoration, water management, etc. A lot of these fields also have a lot of synergy. So where you, for example, think about land restoration, you always think about also water, you think about agriculture, etc. Well, today, we explain a bit what we do in relation to the START program of green destinations. So there are mainly, I think, three main use cases, and I think some of them actually already were also discussed in the previous presentation, so that helps. But here are just three use cases, and I provide some questions that we answer related to the time. What is our impact? And our impact can be, for example, the tourist attraction, what kind of impact does it have on the environment? For example, given the fact that tourists come to a certain destination, think about a coastal area, for example, but can also be something inland. What are the consequences of that? So is, for example, the land degrading, or maybe there are also reputational risks. You can think of all types of consequences. And then, of course, how can we mitigate that? So how can we improve, for example, the environment, maybe preservation areas, that kind of things. We do that inland and also on the water. Speaking of mitigating impact, we see that a lot of our clients looking at land restoration, or what's also called nature-based solutions. Think about maybe restoring a forest to keep water in the soil or to increase biodiversity, that kind of interventions. And then always the question is, okay, but what type of nature-based solution is effective given our objectives and given, of course, the context where we are in? And then where are the best locations to do it? For example, we were working in Ethiopia on a program to fight erosion. So first we analyzed that there was a problem with erosion in multiple regions. One of the consequences was that water was not kept in the soil, which led to land degradation. And then the question was, okay, how can we do something about erosion? And then we find, okay, what are the best locations to start and then to extend the project? And then we can also see, okay, what can you expect from the impact? So what effects can you expect when you start with a certain nature-based solution in a location? And then we keep monitoring that impact. And then you can actually track the progress of your project, and maybe you see new opportunities or risks to the project, and then you can intervene timely. A good thing here is that we tend to use things like satellite imagery. The reason that we do it is that it is fast, it's very cost efficient, and you can cover large areas. And what is very nice, you can actually do some time traveling. So you can go back in time, 10, 20, 30 years ago, you can see what happened in the last 30 years. And it provides a very good baseline for your project, so that you actually know, okay, this is what normally goes on in the location. We are having this intervention, and now we are going to see how it changes. And that's, I think, a strong point, one of the strong points with using satellite data technologies. There are plenty of information products that you can that we can generate or that can be generated with satellite imagery, often in combination with some modeling. And here I list just some that could be relevant for you as a destination. So things like air quality, coast areas, forests. I think there were already quite some interesting examples also in the previous presentations. Also on oceans, you can do things. Waste is interesting. You can also look at, okay, the amount of waste produced, also the amount of waste that's leaking into the environment, including rivers, so that you know, okay, how can we mitigate that? So that's maybe also something interesting to look at, because I believe that that's sometimes also a problem in tourist areas. This is just an example. I will not give examples of all the information products with respect to the time, but this is an actually quite simple example of an area around the Sea of Galilee in Israel, where we compared 2015 with 2016, and we saw that deforestation was happening on quite some important areas. And here you see that actually and honestly, this is quite simple to do. So this is a simple technology which can be very effective of just seeing, okay, what changed in relation to the forest that we are interested in. Sometimes images are enough. Often you also want something like what we call a dashboard, something to show to other people. And then we translate all the different data components into, in this case, 3 indicators. This is an online dashboard, so you can click on the map, get some extra information about the project. This is a project about carbon sequestration, so CO2 reduction. It's about tree growth, biomass, and we can show that in these type of dashboards. Yeah, it just provides a good overview for you, but also your clients or your stakeholders. This is a little bit more complex a dashboard. Again, it's just an example. You can always adapt it to your specific needs. We have quite some templates that you can easily adapt to what you actually need or what you like. That's it for today. If you want any more information, please contact Green Destinations, the START program. We're more than happy to explain well, anything related to data technologies and how it can impact your destination. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Cohen. Thank you for participating. Let me share my screen once again. And then we go straight to the question and answers, and I give floor to Masha and also to Albert, so they can give us like the final clarifications. And yeah, that's it. Masha and Albert.
Thank you, Malu. Please stay tuned. We just have 2 questions from the public. First, from Jana Apich from Good Place from Slovenia. For the carbon footprint calculator, what is your experience about gathering data? Because in Slovenia, this was also probably the biggest problem, because we don't know how did a visitor travel to and around the destination. We tried calculating it in Slovenia, and we realized this is the biggest problem, actually.
Can I give an answer to that?
Sure.
I won't have the ultimate answer because we are indeed working on it together with a number of destinations here in the Netherlands that are also part of the SOSTES tool developers, and Arni is also involved in that discussion. So initially, there is indeed some information available, and some information is not yet available. So it would require more time and effort to collect the input information to make the tool working. Nevertheless, we have already agreed with the pilot destinations like Schouwen-Duiveland here and Goeree to continue working on that, so that we have a better insight into how much time it will take destination managers to collect this information. Maybe also which information can easily be collected and which information takes more time, and perhaps how much time, and how much time it will take us through our project manager, product manager, in this case Arni, to help you in getting the results and also comparing your destination with another one. So the answer to that can hopefully be given in a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you. And then maybe just a very quick answer to the second question from Mr. Jaro Berce. How can you, in current economical system where land in the cities is just exploited to build more and more concrete buildings, change the mentality to switch to more green cities?
Masha, feel free to also contribute to that question. But what I would say is that I think the awareness is really growing that the climate breakdown is upon us and no place on earth will escape it. So I think that especially the tourism destinations will feel that they need to keep themselves attractive and also healthy to visitors and to the residents, which at the end of the day will determine the outcome of the elections. So I feel that the crisis of the last year, however bad they were, have helped to the awareness that we need to do something, and we can't continue to do business as usual. So I'm not worried. I mean, yes, I'm worried about more crises to come and more emergencies to come, but I think that we will, in many destinations, realize that we need to do something and need these tools.
Yeah, I think this is a very good message to end this first session of today's program. It's actually the same message that Mrs. Ying Chunling from the Sun Moon Lake area had. She said that when the climate emergency really was upon them, they all stepped together and they reacted together as a community. Thank you very much to all of the speakers. I now invite all of the participants to join one of the two breakout rooms. In one breakout rooms, you will be able to continue questions and answers with the speakers. And in the second room, we will talk about the START program if you have more questions about that. So you can choose either two of the breakout rooms, and we will see you back on the main stage in half an hour. Hello, welcome back and good afternoon again from Slovenia. We are starting this second session of the third day of the Global Green Destinations Days 2021, where we are going to have 4 presentations and we are going to keep talking about this really important topic about how to reduce tourism's impact on the planet. We are going to hear from 4 destinations who have already started acting in this direction. So besides from me, from Slovenia, we have destinations representing different corners of the world. We have Mr. Ben Artap from Australia, Mr. Jose Toste from Portuguese Azores, and Mrs. Beth Thornton from Canada. But we are going to start this second session with the presentation from Slovenia, where I'm going to tell you more about how we started using the Green Scheme of Slovenian Tourism as a tool for integration of sustainable practices. I will just take a moment to share my screen. Here we go. And of course, if you have any questions, you can write them. You are very, very welcome to write them in the chat, and we'll answer them later because we have envisioned a short Q&A session after all 4 presentations. So first, I'm going to speak about our example, about how Slovenia already last year started to develop tools, very concrete tools based on the green scheme. Just very shortly, I would like to put our efforts in the context for those of you who don't know us yet. So the vision of Slovenia that was set with our latest tourism strategy that ends this year is to become a global green boutique destination for discerning guests who are seeking a diverse and active experience, peace of mind, and personal benefits. The goals of the strategy are improved recognizability and image of the country, so partly branding, sustainable growth, and especially higher added value. So these were the goals that we set 4 years ago. Of course, with the COVID crisis, some of them weren't achieved, but we all agreed that the strategy that comes next, so from 2022 on, that is already being made, should focus on the same topics. It should have the same priorities. And I think also our vision will stay the same because it proved to be the right one, especially with the COVID crisis. This is very shortly, so you know our role in the grand scheme of Slovenian tourism. So Slovenian Tourist Board is a public agency that acts under the Ministry of Economic Development and Technology, and we also work very closely with different project associations, with DMMOs and other tourism businesses, but these are our main partners. Here we go. So about our green philosophy, you were able to see from our vision, from our strategy goals, Slovenia is trying to promote itself and is also working in a very sustainable manner. So this green scheme for us isn't just about promotion, but it's mostly about developing a tourism that would be responsible, and especially a tourism that would keep our environment as it is, because we realize that our greatest advantage is our green nature, the green facts, these really strong green facts that we have. For example, 60% of the country is covered in forest. We have really pure water. We have no big cities. People really love outdoor activities, and this is our main advantage in tourism. So in order to preserve that, we created in 2015 the Green Scheme of Slovenian Tourism. It is a national program for certification and development of responsible practices, and it already has almost 200 members. So this program, the Slovenia Green Label and the Green Scheme of Slovenian Tourism, it helps us promote our green facts, our green nature. It gives us really the basis. So we avoid greenwashing. Slovenia is green because it has been certified globally on many levels as a green country. These are the bases. I'm sure many of you know this about us already. You also know our Slovenia Green Label. Just to give you the idea, in the Green Scheme of Slovenian Tourism, we already have 88 accommodations, 59 destinations. These destinations are all certified based on the Green Destination Standard. We have 30 restaurants. This is a new category as of this year. 8 agencies, 4 parks, 6 attractions, and 1 beach, which joined this year. So it is also the first one in this category. Now, in the previous years, the scheme has been growing very fast. And now that we have so many members, we have found that this has actually become a platform for implementation of very concrete products. And today I will speak about one of them, about plastics. This is a visualization of the change that the Green Scheme is undergoing. So on the top level, you have these categories, which is the central level of the Green Scheme. So different certifications for destinations, accommodations, attractions. But now that we already have so many members, and here I should also mention that almost all of the main Slovenian tourism destinations are already in the Green Scheme. And next year, when Portorož, which is a big coastal resort, joins, over 90% of overnight stays in Slovenia will happen in green certified destinations. So this has actually become a good platform for destination management. And this is why we started to implement these tools in the scheme. So first, last year, we developed Green and Safe. This was just after the first Corona wave. And with this label is being used more widely, actually, not only by the holders of the Slovenia Green label, but it communicates the same facts. The fact that Slovenia is green and safe. And we also developed a manual that gives directions to destinations and to businesses on how to keep acting in this manner. So this was really a communication tool and a handbook to help people to keep up the quality despite more difficult times. This is how it looked in practice. We designed different leaflets, different communication tools, and the whole kit, which destinations could then download, and businesses could download, and they could use it in their own buildings. Up to this day, Green and Safe, this label has more than 1,000 users. So this was last year's project, and this year we started developing 3 others. So single-use plastics, green office, and green events. Today, I'm going to talk about single-use plastics a little bit more. Now, this is something that we found, this plastic is something we found is very, very tangible and also a very concrete problem that we need to address. It is something, in my opinion, very similar to climate change, something that is really needs to be addressed as soon as possible. And it is something that we can all see is not good. So there are direct consequences. I think especially with COVID epidemic, this has really become a huge problem. So this plastics initiative, we started developing it this year. And in the beginning, we thought it was going to be not really simple, but we thought, plastics is very concrete. You can get concrete results very simply. There are always numbers you can communicate. But then when we started digging more into it, we found that plastics is actually, it's omnipresent, it's everywhere, and it's very difficult to identify the items that you are going to get rid of, especially in tourism industry. So this is a project that has been developing for the past few months since this spring, and we are hoping to get the first members, the first signatories of our commitment, which I will present later on next week already. So first of all, why plastics? As I said, there is an urgency to act like with climate change, and our main goal is to have Slovenian tourism without single-use plastics and with less waste. Here, I would really like to stress this single-use, because we realize that all plastics is not bad, and all plastic, it's impossible to get rid of it, even just inside one industry such as tourism. So you all know that globally, plastics is one of the key environmental problems, and it has to be. This is why it has to become part of the solution. So all of our efforts, the direction we are working towards, this is all based on the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative by UNWTO. And at the same time, it has become, with this, it has become an international priority. It is also very high on the EU agenda. This was made much more obvious, as I mentioned before, by COVID-19 and plastics everywhere. In Slovenia, our goals are, and the meaning of this project is to position Slovenia as a sustainable tourist destination. Also because I think in sustainability, and thankfully many countries have recognized this as a model to develop. And everyone is working so much in this direction that this gives us another push to do even more. And we know that now is time for more concrete projects and to really apply these principles. So apart from certification and destination development, also on a national scale. We have been promoting sustainable gastronomy for the past 2 years very intensively, also because there has been a lot of activity in this area. Michelin guide was published for the first time for Slovenia last year and then this year again. So gastronomy is really developing very fast, and plastic is a big part of gastronomy, especially when it comes to packaging. As mentioned before, this topic is very high on the European agenda, on the UNWTO agenda, and we wanted to act as a preference before it became obligatory. Also, we have the ability to connect stakeholders on national level. And we have also found that in Slovenia, among stakeholders, there is big interest, especially because this is something very, very visible. So we are working in the frame, in the footsteps that the European Union directive set, which is to eliminate certain plastic products by this year, reduce some others by 2026, and recycle as much as possible by 2029. Globally, by 2025, so these are the main focuses that the Global Tourism Plastics Initiative presents. It's to eliminate problematic or unnecessary plastics, change where you can, include the value chain to move towards more reusable plastics, increase the use of these recycled plastics, to participate and invest, and especially to report. I think this last point, it was already mentioned before in the climate emergency workshop. It is extremely important to measure the state of things in the beginning, to follow the development, and then to measure at the end of the project, because this is the only way to know whether you have developed or not. And I think it is also important to publicly communicate these numbers, because this can also be part of raising awareness amongst people. And this is also something that we would like to increase in the green scheme in the following years. So to really measure our KPIs, measure how much plastics we got rid of in the course of the project. We identified key partners in the project of eliminating single-use plastics. So these are businesses and destinations. As mentioned before, we work very closely with destinations, and this is made much easier via the green scheme, which already has 59 certified destinations. This presents a very good basis, because at the moment, even before the project actually kicks off and starts, you can see that at the moment, 80% of the territory is covered by destinations who are certified by green destinations, who have obtained the Slovenia Green Label. We also work very closely with Slovenia Green Consortium. We have 53 municipalities, if you look on the left of the screen, from the Association of Municipalities and Towns of Slovenia, who have signed a pledge that they will organize events without plastic cups, plastic cutlery. This was already some time ago. 10% of Julian Alps Biosphere Reserve. So Julian Alps Biosphere Reserve covers 10% of Slovenian territory. They have also included this topic in their development plan. Chamber of Commerce and Industry of Slovenia has developed a project some years ago already, Super Gostinec. Gostinec in Slovenian is someone who works in hospitality. Six companies have already joined, and the Hospitality Chamber of Slovenia has also has had 4 members sign their code on how they're going to reduce plastic waste and single-use plastics from their work. So we already have good basis to start acting even more on this. How concretely are we going about it at the Slovenian Tourist Board? First, we have activities organized by destination authorities, and through this project that is going to be about single-use plastics, we are going to try to involve DMMOs as much as possible. Also through green events. So events organized by the DMMOs, we will try to encourage them to use less single-use plastic or not to use it at all. We have a brand, Slovenia Unique Experiences, that so the experiences that get this label, they get more marketing through our channels. And in order to become a Slovenia Unique Experiences, there are some criteria that also refer to the use of plastics and that forbid it from the from the experience, from the final product that comes to the customer. In the green scheme of Slovenian tourism, we have special labels for attractions, accommodation providers, and restaurants that are all based on international certificates, such as Green Globe, Bio Hotels, Travel Life. And this in itself is very discouraging towards the use of single-use plastics. Now, it depends on the international certificate, but in general, this single-use plastics is very much discouraged. And the last point are green events. This is the second project that we have been working on in the past few months. So we are trying to bring the green events into the green scheme of Slovenian tourism to have them certified as well, because we have realized that this is something that is very that produces a lot of single-use plastic. In Slovenia, this is an important topic because there are about 8,200 restaurants with 20,000 employees. So you can imagine how much plastic waste that produces. The development of the project, as I said, it is really much more complex than we thought in the beginning. So it all started at the end of last year when we created a roadmap, Slovenia Green, where 3 core areas were defined, where our destinations and our Slovenia Green Consortium wanted more action. And plastics was actually the first one among them. So this is what got us started in a way. We did a qualitative analysis this spring. And then during the summer, we developed this model for elimination of single-use plastics. Next week, we are going to implement it on the portal, and we are going to communicate it through the partners that I mentioned earlier. And next week, we are going already to announce the project at the frame of the project at the Days of Slovenian Tourism. And then the next step would be to integrate this topic in the green scheme of Slovenian tourism and our other tenders. This is an approach that we found makes the most sense because it's a very complex subject, and you cannot just bring it into the green scheme of Slovenian tourism, set criteria, and say to destinations, if you can respect these criteria, you can still have Slovenia Green label. If you can't, then it's no good. Maybe you will lose the label. This is no way to go about it because it's a very complicated matter. And we found that it's much better and much more fair to first have this very soft approach with communication, commitment, signing a pledge, and to then bring it into more certified systems gradually or in a very reduced form. No, so as I mentioned, we weren't just able to, and we will not be able to just eliminate all plastics from Slovenian tourism. So for the moment, we focused on these four products: plastic bottles, plastic cups, single-use plastic packaging in hotel rooms, and single-use plastic food packaging. First, we are going to address accommodation providers, restaurants, event organizers, and destinations, especially the 59 destinations that are already in the green scheme. We call this the 4x4 model, and by signing this pledge or commitment, the signatories are going to commit to eliminate these four products by the end of 2022. So in the beginning, this is only going to be a commitment, but I think it is a very good way of really communicating our goals and the importance of this topic towards the others. So this approach stands on these 3 bases: to eliminate, innovate, find other ways to replace plastic, and finally to make it circulate. Our partners, as I said, we are going to address restaurants, destinations, and so on. First, we are going to connect with accommodation providers, with Tourism and Hospitality Chamber of Slovenia, Association of Hoteliers. Next, with the Chamber of Craft and Small Businesses of Slovenia, with destinations through the Slovenia Green Consortium, and event organizers through destinations, Tourism Association of Slovenia, and Association of Municipalities and Towns. With restaurants, I forgot to mention, you see it's written JRE. This is Jeune Restaurateur d'Europe. And all of the restaurants in Slovenia who are members of this association have already agreed to obtain the green key and are working towards becoming more sustainable. Now, maybe in Slovenia, this is a little bit easier, all of this connecting and direct communication, because it's a very small country and we all know each other. So all of these association, and I think this makes it much, much easier because you can have a more personal relationship. So our target, primary goal that is very, very optimistic is to eliminate single-use plastics from Slovenian tourism, which would also be something I think that would make us internationally even more recognizable as sustainable. And secondary goals, which are very realistic, I think, is to have 20 accommodation and 20 catering providers commit to eliminate single-use plastics by the end of next year. This means eliminating the 4 articles that I mentioned beforehand, and to have concerning destinations by the end of 2022, to have 30% of destinations with the Slovenia Green Label, to have at least one supplier that exceeds to the abolition of single-use plastics, and 70% of the destinations with the Slovenian Green Label should have at least one flagship event that would be labeled Slovenia Green Event or carried out in accordance with these criteria. So I think this is, it turned out to be a really complex project, but I think in Slovenia, it has really, the green scheme has really shown itself as a very useful tool to implement such projects on a national level, working with destinations, with associations. And as mentioned, we are launching this next week, and I hope I will have some very concrete results for you at GGDD 2022. Thank you very much for your attention. I see there are some messages in the chat, but if it's okay with you, I will answer them at the end of this session, so keep them in mind. And would now like to invite our second speaker, Mr. Ben Artap from Australia. Mr. Ben Artap comes from Bundaberg Regional Council. Bundaberg is situated on the eastern shore of Australia in Queensland, and he's Executive Director of Strategic Projects and Economic Development at Bundaberg Regional Council. He's a qualified economist and a senior researcher, and he focuses on macroeconomy, regional innovation, and urban economics. The floor is yours, Mr. Artap.
Hello, everybody. I'm just trying to find my presentation. If it can be shared. I'm just trying to pull it up now. Where is it? Okay, can people see that? Is that clear? Yep, I'll start. Well, yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak at the conference. What I'm going to do today is, I guess, give a little bit of a profile of a major project we're doing in Bundaberg to encourage tourism through supporting sea turtle conservation. And it's going to talk through a little bit of a project we've been implementing in our region over the last 2 years to support sea turtle conservation. That's one of our big tourism attractions here in Bundaberg. But firstly, there's Bundaberg. There's the Netherlands for the conference is headquartered at the moment. Just to give some context where we're located in Australia. We're located at the southern edge of the Great Barrier Reef. So the Great Barrier Reef is a global tourism icon. It makes a significant contribution to our national economy in terms of tourism, and Bundaberg's located on the southern edge of that, just to give you some context. And each year we have over 60,000 visitors come to our coastlines, to places like this on our coast, Monrepo Turtle Centre, to watch turtles hatch during breeding season. So 60,000 visitors each year. So it's one of our big industries, but these turtles are under threat. from a whole range of factors, man-made and natural factors. And what we're trying to do is ensure their survivability in a way that actually encourages tourism, not prevents tourism in a sustainable way in our region. So that's the problem. I guess the problem we have with sea turtle conservation is there's three major factors that are impacting the survival rates of turtles. We have almost half of Australia's loggerhead turtles breed along our coastline. For various reasons, they pick our coast. And what we've been seeing over the last 50 years as the region has developed is a decline in sea turtle breeding and survival rates. So we've seen a significant drop off in turtles coming back to our shores to breed after 30 years of maturing out in the ocean. They come back to the same beach and breed, and we've seen a big decline in those numbers of them returning and the hatchlings going back out to sea. And the three big man-made factors that are doing that. One, there's plastic, and then there's netting that's impacting them, and then the third one that I'm talking about today and that we've been focusing on that we can influence in Bundaberg, given that it's our coastlines, the species used to breed is light. And if you don't know, light disturbs the ability for turtles after they've nested to find the ocean out. So they navigate back into the ocean by looking at the horizon, and if there's urban lights or lights on land, they'll often mistake those lights for the moon and go inland after they've laid their eggs, and obviously they don't survive if they're heading in the wrong direction and don't get back out to sea after they've nested. So what we're doing, we can't do everything about plastics, but there's a lot of stuff being done around the world on plastics. We're not, excuse me, this project's not involved in that. There's a lot of stuff that's been done right around the world around sea netting, which is having a positive impact on sea turtle survival rates, but it's the lights, the issue that we're dealing with, because it's a very local issue, and it's something that as a council we can influence if we make change. So if you're a turtle, this is our coastline here in Bundaberg. If you're a turtle coming into breed, these are the three major beaches that the turtles, particularly loggerheads, breed at, that are on our coastline. But in this coastline, we've also got urban development. So we've got growth and residential populations, and our central business district further down the river there, that actually produces a lot of nighttime urban pollution, which lights up the skies and disrupts the turtles' sea finding behaviour. So if you're a turtle, one of those turtles there, and you're coming into our coastline and to breed, this is kind of what you see. So this picture here is a picture from the ocean looking inland, sort of on the beach, and you can see different types of light there. And if you apply a filter over that to analyse that light, the light on the red area on the left-hand side is the moon, which is obviously normally occurring. The big bright light here is a suburb 3 kilometres away, and this red light here over the horizon is 15 or 13 kilometres away. Sorry, so depending on how bright the light is and how far away it is, it still has a big impact on in terms of what sea turtles see, and they mistake those red areas for the horizon when they're trying to navigate their way back into the ocean. This is another area further along our coastline, just where we've previously, and this is a before shot, this is where we have some of our parks and gardens and barbecue sheds that are lit up like that. And if you apply the same filter, this is what you see if you're a turtle in terms of the brightness of that light that's mistaken for the moon on the horizon. So what we're trying to do is, our hypothesis, and what the scientists tell us, is that if you can reduce urban glow in the red line going down left to right, what you will see is an increase, all other factors remaining equal, an increase in sea turtle survival rates. So we're tracking using data to track historic and future sea turtle survival rates over time as we conduct this experiment across our coastline to monitor the lights, and affect change. So to do that, we have to monitor, to do this experiment, we have to measure the amount of light pollution. And so we're using technology, world-leading technology and data to inform our community around the levels of light in our community, so to empower and encourage them to reduce light usage across the region for this purpose. So this is just a story of how this project evolved. We looked at the technology around the world, And then we looked at our coastline and we found out that there's technology that allows you to measure light pollution in the evening sky. You can put technology that measures urban pollution and sensors that collect that data and can send it to a heat map or produce a heat map where we can then put that data out to our community to inform them about where the light pollution is coming from. So some of the technology there and how we work, the technology is all on poles across the coastline. And there's different types of technology we're using, sensor activated LED lighting, and we're also using special turtle sensitive lighting, if you like, that's developed in Europe to that has a lower impact on the turtles. But across our community, the philosophy we're following for public lighting is that it should be off completely unless it's needed on, and then once it's not needed, the light goes back off. And turtles will only be influenced by permanent light on the horizon. So if you turn it on and off, it knows that it's not the moon and it won't disturb them. So the trick is a light can be on for a short period, but as long as it's turned off quickly, it won't interrupt the turtles. They'll work that out. We know that from the scientists. So this is what the project looks like. These are the poles. There's now 75 of these poles that we've built across our coastline to collect the light pollution data. And sends the data to a dashboard where we can now use that data to measure the amount of light. But the important thing is that over time we want to measure the decline in light once we change community behaviour for light use and the types of through using less light, but also using better technology to reduce the amount of light pollution in the atmosphere. So we went through a process when we got the first poles up a couple of years ago, what they look like, and all these data, there's the location of the poles. So they're sort of on a grid pattern across the coastline. They collect the data from those poles and send it back through a LoRaWAN system to the council. And we can tell literally in live time when the turtles are breeding how much light pollution is in the sky. And then as people go to bed or things, shopping centres close down, the light pollution will go down, and we'll see that later in the night. This is later in the night. If you compare those two, the amount of light pollution is reduced. And this is 15 kilometres away in our major central business area. The same thing. That's as people going to bed, and then middle of the night when the light pollution's gone down, so we can measure it now and have accurate data. But what we've done is we use that data to pick the areas where the most light pollution is, and then we've worked with our own organisation, but with the light pole owners, the state government who owns the light poles, and put brand new technology up. This is a picture of some of the technology there that I won't go into, but it's world leading, first in the world technology with a special light temperature that's good for turtles. But it's also got technology so council can turn those lights off from our main facility, but we can also set sensors and timers so when cars or pedestrians go off, they're turned on to a very low light temperature, and then they go back off, and we can control that quite in a sophisticated fashion over time. And of course, we're collecting the data on light pollution, so we can measure in real time the impact of that intervention of light use. And this is just some of the coastlines where we've put it, what it actually looks like. That may look bright, some of those lights on the shoreline for a human eye, but they're good lights that are turtle sensitive, so to speak. And we can play around with all that technology. And we now know where to deploy it, where that technology is. And because it's such great technology, the private sector and developers and landowners can now copy and use this technology and put it into their own developments and property to improve the impact of what we're trying to do, which is reduce light. So, and just some other pictures of where we've got poles. We've got a smart lighting precinct where we have a lot of developments that we've gone in with a lot of tech and data, but also going into those communities and saying, here, look at this data. It's up to you and your responsibility to use less light. And it's just some of the images there. This technology here, literally when you walk along at the night, this is just before it gets dark. But yeah, it's all set up with this new technology to switch on and off when we need to. And we've also, so the other important part is driving behaviour change across the community. So we've set up things like, you might have heard of Earth Hour. We've got turtles, and we also have a major cultural festival around the beginning of turtle season to celebrate the turtle, and also promote programs like this one to reduce your light usage, which we can now measure through this project, and then use that to further inform community about the success of their own behaviour in a pretty rapid time, literally in evenings from when they take action to use less light. So, and there's a lot of other information we're providing our community to do that. But that's really, I guess what we're trying to do is preserve one of our great ecotourism assets. We want more tourists to come here, but we don't want, we want to make sure that when the tourists are here in the evening and they're moving around, that they're sensitive to what we're trying to do here around light pollution and why we're a dark city, so to speak, at night. So they can also get that experience that they're contributing to the eco experience through their own behaviour when they're travelling to our region to visit the turtles in those during nesting season. So that's really about it. I've tried to be really quick to catch up a bit of extra time. Thank you. You're on mute, I think.
I'm sorry, I must have clicked twice before. Thank you. Thank you. So feel free to write your questions in the chat for Ben, and we will answer them later. And now I would like to welcome our next speaker, also from our maritime region, Mr. Jose Toste from the Azores. Mr. Toste works for the Azores DMMO, and Azores is actually the first archipelago in the world to be certified as sustainable tourism destination under GSTC criteria.
Hi, hello everybody. I guess you are all listening to me. First of all, I would like to thank Green Destinations for inviting us to be part of this amazing panel. And of course, also, I would like to congratulate Green Destinations for this initiative. It's very important to bring together people who are interested in the same topics, especially this one, which is in the agenda, the one about sustainability. I'm going to share my presentation with you all. Since I'm not seeing, I'll just would like to ask if you are all seeing the presentation.
Yes, we can see it, but it's
okay.
not. Now it's we can also see the notes.
I have changed it. Don't you see are you seeing the notes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how to change that. Okay. Okay, I know where it is. So now I guess you are seeing the full presentation.
Yeah, now it's perfect.
Oh, okay, thank you. So the reason that brings me here, it's also to talk about, of course, some good practices. This one's not directly related to environmental practices, which, as you might guess, the Azores is also very committed, very much committed, in fact. But what brings me here is to talk a bit more about the resilience of the tourism sector during and after COVID, the pandemic, and what measures we took to mitigate the impact of COVID that happened all around the world. And so this is more, of course, at an economic and social level than on an environmental level, as the previous presentations that we have just seen. Okay, just a brief presentation about the Azores for those who don't know us. We are in the North Atlantic. We are between Europe and the United States. more or less 1,500 kilometers from Lisbon, and about 1,300 kilometers from the east of New York. We've been isolated regions for many years, many centuries, and for that reason, it was also nowadays it's been a benefit for us because we managed to keep our nature and our traditions for many centuries, and which are very much still alive nowadays. The Azores is an archipelago with 9 islands. We are divided into 3 groups. The eastern group, with São Miguel being the biggest and the most populated island, and Santa Maria Island. Then the central group with Terceira, Graciosa, São Jorge, Pico, and Faial Island, and then the western group with Flores and Corvo. Corvo is our smallest island with a population of more or less 400 people living on this island. The people who visit the Azores, we are 9 islands. Every island, of course, we have a common heritage, common culture, but as far as landscape and traditions is concerned, people who visit one island won't visit the other ones, isn't seeing the other ones, because we are different from one another. So we always recommend people trying to come back and experience the several islands that we have to see the diversity we have in such a small archipelago. We also have some good practices, just a brief about some of them. We of course, most of our territory is green, but from all this, from the territory, about 25% are protected areas, certified and managed by the natural parks on each of the 9 islands. We managed so far to recycle around 40% of the waste produced in the Azores, and we are also consuming around 40% of renewable energies at the moment. Our goal is to reach the 60% energy in the next 3 to 4 years. So that's been also a big investment, especially in the wind energy and also geothermal energy. We are also several certifications, like the UNESCO. 2 areas are World Patrimony Heritage. We have biosphere reserves. We belong to the UNESCO Geopark network. So there are different awards that have been given to the Azores. We have been also partners of Green Destinations and part of the top 100 destinations for several years, which is a great privilege for us. Before the COVID hit us, so the Azores was experiencing an unprecedented path of growth in the tourism, especially beginning in 2015, when we opened the airspace to the airlines, and we started seeing so significant growth. And in 5 years, we basically tripled doubled the overnight stays, which was about 3 million. So 3 million overnight stays for a small region like us was already a significant number. And also this was bringing a very, how can I say that, investment from private and public sectors in the Azores. So as you can see, we almost we doubled the accommodation companies, the restaurants, also tourism tour agents. So it was being a great part of our economy, and still is, of course. And also what we were seeing is that these were all especially small businesses run by small families, and this was bringing it was bringing a good input for the economy of all the locals in the Azores. So as like any other destination in the world, we were hit by COVID. Also March 2020 was the month that it really struck us. And the government started planning several responses. The first one was to adapt it implements the adoption of the Clean and Safe seal developed by Tourism of Portugal, and we adapted that seal to the reality of the Azores. This document was drawn up in partnership with the Regional Health Authority and with several sectors representatives entities in the Azores. So the main goal was the improvement of tourist services from the health point of view, and reinforce the trust of customers and visitors upon the return to the activity of regional companies linked to tourism. This manual was available in different modules, different areas, like there was a special Clean and Safe for local accommodations, another one for hotels, for rent-a-cars, tour operators, even events. All these areas, these main areas, they are their own module for the Clean and Safe seal. And this was the operationalization of this measure was carried by the tourism board of the Azores. Another measure that we took, and it was clear that our focus should be the national market, and for several reasons. One of them was the fact that it was the fact that the national airspace, people wouldn't be surprised by any flight ban, and those eventually who got the virus during their visit to the Azores, they were in national territory, and our government would support all the expenses during the quarantine time, bed and food included. And also we knew that people wanted to travel, to travel to the Azores will now bring additional costs, especially relating to testing. So another significant measure that the government took to minimize those expenses was to sign agreements with national laboratories all over the mainland, where people could access the list, find out which was the nearest laboratory, nearest to their houses, and they could do the test, the PCR test, free of charge within the 72 hours before boarding. So this was a really important measure for us. Then additional to that, there was another incentive to encourage people to get tested, and that was the voucher Destino Seguro, safe destination, which every visitor who arrives to the Azores and brought the test, with a negative result, of course, they would also receive this digital voucher, and they could use it in local services in the region during their stay. So these were two measures that could be combined. Then during summer 2020, there was another program called Viver Açores, Experiencing the Azores. And this program was mainly focusing on local people, local residents of the Azores, and allowed us, there was an incentive that allowed people from the Azores to travel between islands. So especially the smaller islands, the smallest islands, they got a great benefit from this program, because people from bigger islands with more population travel to the small islands, and they barely felt the impact of COVID during that summer, which was really important for those islands. Of course, the same didn't happen on the bigger islands with more beds, but at least the small ones got to benefit from this program. And in March 2021, the previous program that I just told you ended because the government implemented a new travel fare, and this one is a fare it's to stay for, which is called the Azores fare, which allows every resident, every resident in the Azores to travel between islands at a fixed rate of 60 euros round trip. So now people in the Azores can fly for much cheaper, and it's also a great incentive to travel between islands and make the other islands available to people, because despite being a small region, there were many residents that didn't know all the islands, and now we see that this reality is changing. Those were the main programs that I told you about, were developed by the tourism sector, and of course there were other programs aimed at the economy. I'm not going to talk about them, but just to name a few of them, there was a program Apoiar, like translation will be supporting. This program supports the companies that had a significant drop in billing. There was another program called Adaptation, program to support companies to buy protection equipment and services to minimize the risk of being infected, staff and clients alike. There was another program called PACU. This one was to support companies with fixed and operating costs. All these programs, or most of them, they had something as a baseline, that every company that joined one of these programs had to keep the jobs until the end of the program. So this was a prerequisite to be part of this program. And now this year, I can say that our first summer, the summer is basically over. We can say that there were good results. We can say that our expectations were exceeded. Of course, we are not in the numbers that we were in 2019, but in a general way, we were very satisfied this summer with all these measures. Of course, the main market, we benefited because we have our main market now is the mainland, Portuguese mainland, and that also made there was a great demand from this territory. We are seeing the foreign markets also growing, but not so fast, and we think that at least for one more year, our main market will still be the Portuguese market. We also launched a campaign called Azores Safe by Nature, which I'm going now to share with you and finish my presentation. So and if you have any questions, so at the end, I'm also available to answer to them.
Nothing is ever still. There is this flow that we need to surrender to. We need to go with it. Because deep down we know, wherever the wind blows, life will continue to find its perfect route, its best and safer track. A new way of discovery, development, and evolution. A time for profound consciousness and connection. a place for new adventures, more freedom, and better living. Azores, safe by nature.
Thank you very much.
Okay, you're welcome.
Please stay connected for the questions at the end. And I would like to welcome our last speaker of the day, Mrs. Beth Thornton from Canada, from Alberta Southwest Regional Alliance. Mrs. Thornton is the Executive Director of Alberta Southwest Regional Economic Development Alliance, which is a partnership of 15 rural municipalities, and she has worked with this group since its inception. She's also very proud of the strong community commitments to advance the economic development in the region, and she's going to tell us more about this in the last presentation of the day.
Good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you. I will bring up my presentation and let me find my controls here. That always seems to be the biggest challenge of the day, doesn't it? All right. What I will do with my presentation is I will just give you a brief overview of our region, and then that will maybe set the context for our project. The crown of the continent is considered to be Waterton Glacier International Peace Park and the surrounding areas in Alberta, British Columbia, and Montana. Waterton Glacier International Peace Park is the world's first peace park that was established in 1932. In 1995, it was named a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and our most recent accomplishment in 2021, just this summer, the park is officially named the world's first international dark sky park. The Alberta portion of this is on the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains, which the First Nations people referred to as the backbone of the world. The Alberta portion of it is the northwest piece of the crown of the continent. And we have within 2 hours of Waterton Park, we have 3 UNESCO World Heritage Sites. We also have, in addition to the park, Head Smashed In Buffalo Jump, which was established in 1981. And in 2019, Writing on Stone Provincial Park, which was named just in 2019. In addition, we have some wonderful provincial historic sites, Frank Slide Interpretive Center, the Fort Museum of the Northwest Mounted Police and First Nations Interpretive Center, which tells the history of the development of our iconic Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Remington Heritage Museum, Carriage Museum, which documents the early years and culture of the province, and the Bomber Command Museum of Canada, which celebrates our history as a flight training center in World War II. The economy of the region is based on agriculture, energy, and tourism. Characteristic of this region is our warm westerly winds. And in fact, that was what enabled the ranching industry in the province, as the warm winds would blow in. We call it the Chinook, which is the First Nation word for snow eater. So once the warm winds came in, the cattle were able to free range all winter because the snow got blown away. This wind has also become an asset for the region. Harnessing the wind has established Alberta as the birthplace of the wind industry in Canada, as the first commercial wind farm was built here in 1993. The region also has more hours of sunshine than other parts of Canada, supporting innovation in solar energy storage and other clean technology development. We also are home to a unique hydrological feature. Being the highest point in the continent, the river systems run into 3 oceans, through the Columbia River system west to the Pacific, through the North Saskatchewan to the Hudson Bay, and then through the Missouri River to the Gulf of Mexico. So this created some interesting problems for us and some opportunities. This is a region for the self-directed traveler. In order to enjoy our charming communities and back roads and historic sites, a private vehicle is probably the way you're going to get there. So building on our natural attributes, we asked ourselves, how do we create new visitor experiences that are consistent with our regional strengths and values and think ahead to the future? Our thought was to build an electric vehicle charging station network. Our Crown partners in British Columbia had successfully deployed a regional charging station network, and it seemed logical to connect our regions with such a network. And even better, such a network could be powered by our renewable resources. Facilitating regional travel by electric vehicle would create a new experience for residents, attract new visitors, accelerate technology adoption, and also address greenhouse gas emissions related to the transportation sector. So where to start? It seemed quite simple at first, but we had a lot to learn. Just a moment to talk about the technology. Level 1 is our overnight trickle charge. Level 2 is a slow and steady charge, would give you time to explore the area. And level 3 is a quick and powerful, get on your way kind of charge. So back to the project. Partnerships are essential to the success of innovative initiatives. This overall process took about 4 years of planning and grew to include 40 rural communities, 3 cities, and post-secondary education institutions, and ultimately 3 levels of government. Through a process of community engagement and workshops and research and problem solving, the partners developed a strong shared vision. To meet the social, economic, environmental goals, we needed to understand all the implications and identify optimal locations for the technology and for people. So how were the locations chosen? Even considering all the technological needs and environmental goals, our real purpose was to create a traveler amenity and attract new visitors to our region. So the siting criteria became very specific and involved detailed consultations with each of the 20 host community sites. As you see, starting from the top, the criteria included being located on municipal land. What this would do was strengthen community involvement, and each community would then have a stake in contributing to the project. Within walking distance to local attractions, dedicated parking available, and of course the power source and fitting into the overall network. We wanted the locations to have high visibility and be accessible from all directions, and then offer an opportunity for cultural branding. The installations were there to attract people to stop in our communities. The modeling the network was more complicated than imagined. Many factors affect transportation power consumption. Is the terrain uphill or downhill? Is the weather hot or cold? Are you driving with the wind or against the wind? How many people do you have in the car? How much baggage are you carrying? When charging stations are scarce, the result is called range anxiety. We want to be able to know that we want to get reliably from where we are to where we want to be. So the placement of installations was based upon accommodating summer and winter operations, mountain and prairie terrain, distances, the capability of vehicles, and considering what is best for the traveler and for the community. Peaks to Prairies is the most extensive network of its kind in Alberta, creating increased confidence in electric vehicle travel. The 20 combined level 2 and 3 installations connect 40 rural communities, 3 cities, and 1,400 kilometers of highway. It was a condition of the request for proposals that the company who installed the network also committed to own and operate the network for at least 10 years. We felt this was essential to the sustainability of the initiative and the reliable functioning of the network. The partner resources of $180,000 were leveraged with 3 levels of government to create a project that was worth over $2 million. We covered 1,400 kilometers of roadway, and the networking, the fact that the installations are networked enables us to measure the results and impact. We have, you can see from the first numbers there that there have been definitely some impacts from this project. This captures the first 15 months of network operation, and of course that includes the period of, excuse me, it includes the period, the summer of 2020, where we of course had limited travel around the province. So we have avoided 44,330 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent. We have avoided the use of over 20,000 liters of gasoline and have 1,370 unique users in the first 15 months of the program. But we also got another little surprise. The technology in itself is becoming an attraction for the region. Before COVID, this group of travelers from New Zealand enjoyed learning about the wind industry. The region has also become a resource for post-secondary study and research groups to learn about not just the wind, but anaerobic bioprocessing, solar, and hydro generation. So what have we learned? We have learned that partnerships are essential. As one of our community leaders like to say, all of us are smarter than just one of us. There is no shortcut to this success, and we have learned to take time to build the relationships, learn new things, and get excited about the possibilities. We have also learned that what gets measured gets managed. Data and numbers can help demonstrate return on investment in both dollars and community benefit. We strive for a green economy, both in the environmental and the financial meanings. Innovation rises from a spirit of adventure that can flourish in a trusted partnership. We have had success building on existing strengths while not being held back by the past. We look forward to when you can visit our region.
Thank you so much for this presentation, Mrs. Thornton. Actually, I have the first question for you already. I just wanted to ask, at the end of your presentation, you spoke that you got many groups from other parts of the world who wanted to study this project. So it was positive for the image of your region. Were you able to use this in marketing as well a little bit?
Well, we are doing a promotion of the Peaks to Prairies, and I can give you a YouTube link to our playlist of the videos that we are using for the network. Yes.
And do people who come, who visit you already know about this? Tourists and foreigners? Do you have to give them a lot of information on how to use the cars? Where are the charging points?
I think it's mostly at this point for local local residents. I mean, this last year has been largely, excuse me, our borders have not been open. So our marketing has really been local and regional travel and attracting people from around the province. So yes, there's people are aware of it. And as I mentioned, we are connecting to, sorry, I got this frog here today. We have connected to a network. Our province is in Southeast British Columbia, and we are now in conversations with our Montana partners to extend the network down into the United States. So if our border ever opens again, we'll be able to travel.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, I will now go to the other questions that came in the chat during the presentations. The first question is actually for me. Sriara Berce is asking if we are dealing with plastic in nature, as pollution in nature is very high. At the moment, unfortunately, no. So there are other organizations and ministries that are dealing with this in Slovenia, but in terms of tourism and of Slovenian Tourist Board, we are not working on it at the moment because we have found that this area of plastic pollution, this topic is actually very, very wide. And this is why we have identified only the four products that I mentioned in my presentation. There was in Slovenia, there was a project that lasted for a few years, where for one weekend in the year, people were asked to come clean up nature, and it had a really, really good response. It was called Očistimo Slovenijo, Let's Clean Slovenia, but it didn't take place last year, I think. So we would consider marketing such events, or of course spreading information about such events. But at the moment, we are, unfortunately, we don't have the manpower or to work on plastic waste in the nature. But I'm sure it will be one of the things that will follow when this plastics project develops a little bit more. Then we have one question for Ben from Australia. Ben, are you still with us? Ben?
Yes, hello, I am here.
Did you see the question?
Yeah, the answer to the question, that the project cost 1.3 million Australian dollars, and it was half funded by the federal government, half by the council, and the other remaining quarter was funded by our community groups. So our tourism organisations, our natural resource management group, the state government, and a university, and other community groups all chipped in money to that $1.3 million budget. So it was a great example of people coming together to fund a very important project. And the other question around what's been the population's response to the project are very positive. We've had developers, households, and utility providers all, I guess, step up and voluntarily change that infrastructure and light globes and apply lighting technology on their own back based on what they've seen in this project. So it's been incredible. There's work, continued work to do with broader across the community with residents, but we've now sort of got the project set up where we know we'll be able to get schools and kids and more grassroots community organisations, making change in terms of how they use light. Yeah.
And Ben, I also have a question for you. Do you tell tourists about this project, and what are their reactions?
Yeah, we've got a little bit in our tourism initiatives around becoming a green destination. We've used it as an education piece. I probably couldn't say what the reactions yet because we're only in the process of developing a lot of those programs and initiatives. So, but the anecdotal stuff we've had from, you know, a small number of visitors has all been very, very positive.
Perfect, thank you. I also have a question for Jose. Because Jose, you said that you presented your label clean and safe, which is actually very similar to our green and safe that I mentioned in my presentation.
Correct.
And I just wanted to ask, are you verifying that people are actually following these criteria that you put in the manual, or is it a trust-based?
When you say people, you mean the companies?
Yes,
from the sector?
businesses.
Yes, they are. We in fact we have been how do you say that in English? Inspecting the companies. We didn't manage to inspect all the companies, but there was like a surprise inspection to a selection, to a sample of companies, and they were implementing the very few. There were a couple of them, or some that we had to take out the seal. Because they weren't implementing all the safety measures that they were committed to, they should be committed to, but a great majority they were implementing. So by the sample that we did.
And who was inspecting the DMMO?
No, we have an inspection department for the tourism, and they are the ones doing that.
Yeah, because in Slovenia we had the same thoughts. We are not inspecting at the moment because there are really a lot of people who are using this.
Yes.
But I think in general, already in Slovenian legislation, there are so many rules and laws that people in general, I'm sure, are following it. Thank you. We have another question for Ben. Ben?
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, the messaging that's been most effective with reducing urban light is probably the messaging when we, you know, explain and encourage locals to really, you know, look at it, go see a turtle, you know, go to one of the breeding evenings or nesting evenings. So it's really messaging that connects people with the actual animal in the most simple way I can put it. So, you know, getting them to see video content and pictures and understand how light impacts their survival. And once you can get that very, very simple story around this species survival is impacted by your light pollution, and then you see the beautiful animal, that messaging really sort of empowers people to be responsible corporate citizens and community citizens to make change in your or just be very aware of the amount of light you're using. So that's, and we have tools and kits that goes out to schools and through our communication channels to sort of tell that very simple story about how important the turtle is, and that's probably the best messaging we've got.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any more questions? Another one for you, Ben, from Rabin Niraula. Parallel to focusing on turtle, did you find it disturbing for other biodiversity also?
No, we didn't. Did you? Parallel to focusing questions parallel to focus. No, we didn't really. The big issue was turtles. So that's our most iconic tourism brand. One of our big icons is the turtle. So we've really only focused on that at the moment. But yeah, of course, there's other species out there that are important. But no, we haven't.
Okay. Any other question? How do we work with the community to reduce the CO2 emissions or the use of plastic? I think this is maybe a question for most of the speakers, or did you have someone in particular in mind, Ravin? If not, I can answer for the Slovenian example. CO2 emissions and carbon footprint is actually a very big problematic in Slovenia at the moment, especially in the green scheme, because we haven't been measuring it up until this year, because we have found it to be very complex. There was a lot of data to put in, and this was why Jana Apich was asking in the first session, how do you measure with the START tool? How do you measure the impact of people who come to the destination and how they come? So CO2 is something we haven't been measuring at the national level, but we are writing our new strategy of tourism for the next period of 2022 to 2028, and we have decided that we are going to bring in the strategy some new KPIs that will reflect the state of sustainability in Slovenia directly. So it will not only be about added value, about overnight stays and arrivals, but we are also going to identify KPIs that will reflect the state of the environment and society in Slovenia. And we are still, of course, talking about it. We had the first meeting with some major stakeholders, big Slovenian tourism businesses, bigger destinations, mid-September. And I think one of the main KPIs, one of the KPIs that was defined as among the most important ones was CO2 and the carbon footprint. So I think we will be paying a lot more attention to it on the national level. And one conclusion we already have is that it is impossible to measure this on national level if you do not measure it on local level. So I think we'll address both levels. And then you were asking about plastics. How do we work with community on the use of plastics? So at the moment, we are going to mostly communicate through these commitments that I mentioned in my presentation. But mostly because we are a national organization, it is very difficult to reach all parts of different local communities. So we are going to work very closely with DMMOs. And this is why we have set up a model of so-called lead destinations in 2017. In this model, we have 35 destinations, and we at the national level communicate very intensively with these 35 DMMOs, and they in turn communicate with their local businesses, with local inhabitants. So this is one way of going about it. The other way is communicating with different associations to get the information and this message to their members. Maybe other speakers would like to respond as well. Jose, maybe? Do you have any thoughts on this question?
So yes, we in the Azores we have something that we call the Sustainability Charter. This is something that we are implementing, and for the local business that wants to work for the 17 GSDs. So when they commit, when they join the Sustainability Charter, they can choose several commitments and to work on several goals. One of them, of course, is the one related to plastic and to the reduction of the CO2 emissions. So this is one of the ways that we are now working with local communities through this charter. And then by the end, every year now they have to build a report, and in that report they have to show the results that they have reached during that year.
Yeah. And maybe also Bev, in Canada, since this concerns traffic a lot, these CO2 emissions, I think you have reduced them by implementing this electric cars network. Would you like to tell us more about it? Answer this question from your perspective as well?
Okay, I will do that. I think in our situation, just picture that we are a sparsely populated area with great distances between things. So this is just a very early stage adoption of something that we are, I guess, getting ahead of the future. But if anybody has driven an electric car, it is also a pretty interesting vehicle. It is really different from driving an internal combustion engine. So the technology in itself is a little bit of an adventure. So I guess just keep in mind, we are at the starting edge of our things, and we're hoping that this is a way that we are going to get ahead of some impacts in our region.
Thank you. We have the next question for Ben again. Ben, were there many adjustments made to traffic lights that function 24 hours or blink after certain hours? Ben, I can't hear you. Are you muted maybe? Ben, I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very good question. And we did do a lot of stuff around looking at the Australian lighting standards that regulate the amount of light you've got to have in urban areas and for street lights and for traffic lights. And after a long process, what we found was a way to reduce light to a standard that's acceptable by the regulators. And basically what it came down to is they would allow you to lower certain levels of light in urban areas if you could demonstrate that the community supported that, and that the light, and from a council's perspective, that the increased liability that risk would put on effectively the council's insurance was only small. So we had to do a risk assessment of that across our assets and facilities. And that came back that it wasn't a big risk, and that from that perspective, but also the perspective from getting around the lighting standards, we dealt with that too, which had never been really tested before in Australia. So there was lots of adjustments made to traffic lights. Every light in key areas was adjusted and controlled. And do they blink in certain hours? Well, they're actually off most of the time until they come back on, but there's nothing that blinks. They're dimmed or they're turned off or they're set on timers and monitors. So, but yeah, we did a lot of work around adjustments. That was quite tricky from a regulatory perspective.
Thank you. We will now go to the last question, and this one is actually for Albert Salman, I think, from Green Destinations. Albert, does Green Destinations have an annual circularity or green focus area destinations can support? Or is it encouraged for each destination to build their own path based on local needs?
Thank you for the question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's a good question. Most of our programs and tools will be available for every destination to actually choose their own path. I mean, certification, training programs, monitoring, benchmarking is available anytime through our programs, and we can support you also throughout the year and over the years. It's a good question for today because climate reset, as we have introduced that this week, will be really a big topic for the next year. So we encourage many destinations to engage on that, to learn from each other. If we have only one, you can't learn from each other. So hopefully there will be many. And then if that's successful, that will be probably a big topic on the next year's Global Green Destinations Day. So we can even engage more people in learning from these experiences. Listening to Masha, it's really exciting to see that Slovenia continues to be a laboratory for sustainable tourism practices. And so I've already asked Masha and her colleagues of Good Place whether it's maybe an idea that after the evaluation of these projects, let's say the single-use plastic project, but maybe also the other ones that are going to run this year, whether we could indeed see how we could help as green destinations to disseminate that together with Good Place in the Global Leaders Program for national tourism boards or for other destinations that that want to implement that at destination level. So, and that can then be the topic for the next year after the next GGDD.
Yeah, thank you. I think there are lots of projects to do afterwards in the coming years. I would like to thank you all very much for participating at today's event. Thank you for all of your questions. We still have the breakout sessions that you can join. They will be open until 3 p.m. And at the same time, I would like to invite you to tomorrow's last day of the conference. Tomorrow, the topic will be new tools and regenerative tourism. And I'm sure it will have some really interesting speakers as well. Thank you very much again. And I hope to see you all next year. Goodbye from Slovenia.
Thank you, Masha. All the best.